What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I am Alex, and I'm joined from a few special guests here. We're going to be talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the technical test being next Thursday. We want to get pumped. We want to get prepared. So I brought two friends of mine who are well-versed, whether it's gaming, horror, or actually both. We got Killjoy Jake, who you may know from the Scream content. We have Sway, and you can follow both them, all of their stuff from their Twitter to Jake's, both his channels, his main and also the gaming one. Both channels are in the description. Gentlemen, welcome in and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's. I think we need to go through what we're thinking, about this game, and so maybe you have to go into like the film franchise. So where are your guys' like expertise at? Have you watched the movies? Like how excited are you for the game? Versus films. Where are you on all that stuff?
I'm hyped, man. I'm very hyped as someone who loves the movies, even the weirder ones. I'm excited to get into this. It looks like Friday the 13th, but maybe like a little better. It's got some more elements to it that I really enjoy. I just kind of did a little deep dive on it this morning, just reading about all the different things and different characters and killers you can play as, and it seems really cool. A little more complex than, like I said, like Dead by Daylight or Friday the 13th. So I'm hyped for it, man. It's gonna be good.
Yeah, I've seen most, if not all, the movies. I just went back and rewatched them. I want to say 2 months ago, so fairly fresh. I like even the newer ones that they've came out with recently. And each time this IP just comes out, I kind of like it. So I love Friday the 13th. I have two friends that love to play it. The servers are always empty though. And I just love what I'm seeing from the game so far. So can't wait to get into it.
Yeah. So I think, well, a couple of things. You mentioned Dead by Daylight, Jake, and I think they actually have their anniversary, their 7-year anniversary stream today. I do want to talk about the idea of this game versus a Friday or a Dead by Daylight because it's more complex, right? Like for sure. But also, like I lean into that. I get really excited about that. There is some parts of that worry me. One of it is the 3v4, right? And the idea that what if it's too hard? And we don't know yet. I'm sure they would know more than us. What if it's too hard to play as the victim? So just throwing the first question out to you guys, what do you want out of this game when we'll talk about the killers, but when you're just playing as the victims, do you like it being difficult? Or do you even think it is difficult?
Yeah, it definitely seems like it's going to be a little challenging. I kind of want that though, I guess, as a victim character. I think I think there's going to be a fun side to both characters as long as it's not too hard. To the point where you can't even get out of the basement or whatever.
Yeah.
If it's like that, okay, I don't know what to tell you. But if I can run, get a head start, and then Leatherface comes and saws me in half, okay. That's pretty cool. That's pretty terrifying. I'm into that. But as long as it's you have a chance, you know what I mean? There's clearly you have a chance of escaping. You can get out. Then yeah, okay. I think that'll be cool. I was reading about the door mechanics where it's you can double lock them, and it's if you're the killer, that's kind of the first thing you have to do. You can't just rush into the basement because the survivors could get around you. So I'm that. Okay, that's cool, but I definitely see people finding a workaround there. You know what I mean? There's gonna be something. I can just feel it, but hopefully it's nothing too crazy. Is my hopes.
Yeah.
I like a game where, especially in games like this, if they're in this element, then the victims are fighting from underneath. So I side with it should be more difficult. Not impossible to win, but definitely more difficult. I love like he was talking about with the lock features, and I do believe that some of the family once the victims pick those locks, they're gone for the rest of the game. So it's not, there is little things like that we could work around, but Leatherface spawning down there with you when the game first starts with the victims in the basement. That is, I don't know how that's gonna work because like he was talking about the running start, and that's why I was I don't know how much of a running start we'll have.
Yeah. That's when I think of Friday, that's the first difference that I see where, Jason may you have you don't even have a 50-50 shot, but you do have a chance, right? That if you all gang up early on as the survivors or counselors in Friday, and Jason picks your area as the first place to teleport to, you're kind of screwed, early game, right? But it's a shot. It's not 100% because he could pick anywhere on the map and you could be somewhere else. For this game, it's so claustrophobic. You're in such a tight spot, and like immediately. And I guess again I would lean into that because that's going to be terrifying. That immediately when you start the game, there's no dilly dallying. Let's players on YouTube, maybe they go around and talk to their friends in Friday the 13th. There's no time for that. Like you immediately got to get going. I think that could work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's going to be really fast paced and fun, I think, for the most part. Like as long as it's just not like as long as you can get out of the basement and interact with all the different like areas and stuff, it seems like that's going to be a bit of a hurdle early game. But then as you kind of get into it and you go through some more of the levels or like more of the area, I mean, it's going to be fun. I think it's overall going to be a good time as long as it's balanced enough.
Yeah.
I just hopefully they found that balance. That's what I'm the most worried about as of right now.
It seems like to me, the victims really have to play as a team and really, loot. You can only carry 2 things in your inventory at a time. It just seems to me like looting and finding a way out and as much teamwork as possible is going to be vital, especially with the odds that you're up against. So, there is a lot of balance concerns, but a lot, like I said, like that claustrophobic feeling. I mean, it does, like, even just from talking about it, it just feels like if you were a victim in that situation, you would literally, you don't know where you're going, you don't know the layout, you don't know, and then it's all of these twists and turns and like what they have locking the doors. You just never know. You got the grandfather UAV, so like it's just anything can come from anywhere, and I like that. But once again, if it's impossible to win, that would ruin the playing experience right there. So
yeah. Just want to say hi to those in the chat, and we were actually just talking about Killer Clowns right before this. Yeah, Killer Clowns, and that's a different one. I think that's 3v7. I think it's I mean, these games. I think the 1v4 or 1v8 for Friday, or I think Predator is 1v4 as well. Like so many of these games have already done it, so you just have to come up now with very weird number combinations, right? Like who thinks? I guess 3v7 gets you to 10. This one probably is the weirdest. 3v4. So 7 in all, odd number, literally.
I'm intrigued by that though. I'm happy it's not just the same game. You know what I mean? Like it's not just a reskin of like Dead by Daylight or Friday the 13th with Leatherface instead. No, this is way different. You have multiple different killers you can play as. It almost feels like the Evil Dead game in a way. With that, you're kind of like merging those two together with this one.
Yeah, and Evil Dead I think was really good, and that game has stayed alive. Like I jumped off about few weeks in, but I had a load of fun. That game was very different. Yeah, we've done Friday and we've done Predator, and Ilphonic, who made those earlier, they made Ghostbusters this past year. That game kind of died after a day. Like those are fun, but they are that you pick an IP and you put. See, honestly, like I'm a little worried, and Jake, for like Scream. Like I'm worried that is what you're gonna get one day. They'll be the ones to like pick it up, and not gonna be happy about that. A broken mess like Friday the 13th. That's a good point. So for Friday the 13th, there were 2 kind of key issues with it that hopefully Texas won't have, and one of them I think for sure won't, is the licensing and all the the court stuff. So you literally cannot add, and then the bugs. Yeah, the game actually was a very broken mess for like the first couple months, or maybe it still is. How are you guys feeling on like performance? I mean, years later, this should be a fixed thing, and this is why you do a technical test. Literally, they say that's what this is for servers and to make sure everything's working.
Yeah, I have a feeling Texas Chainsaw won't be as bad with that as Friday.
Yeah.
Like there's so much going on behind the scenes with that game versus this one. Like you said, with all the court stuff has been still a nightmare even now. Even after it's resolved, it's all the shows and movies we're getting now are all like the completely separate teams are working on it. Texas Chainsaw, to my knowledge, is a little less divided, which is nice. Maybe not all the movies are like stellar, top-notch movies or whatever. It's not the greatest franchise out there, but I have a lot of faith in this game. I think it's trying something new, and that can go one or two ways. This could be awesome. This can be great with the variety of killers and different like play styles you have to go with, and like you were talking about earlier, Sway. Like you only get like 2 items And if you don't have that like bone stick thing or whatever, how are you going to defend yourself? You know, there's a lot of things you have to think about. And I think that's going to make this one really unique in its own way. Will that be a good thing or not? Time will only tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think I have a lot of faith that this game will come out in good performing condition. The team is also very transparent, and that kind of also goes a long way. I feel like with a lot of people with goodwill. Now it could all go down the drain if you get it and it's not really working. But like he was saying, like I think with no court battles involved, no different teams, no issues outside of just making the game, and they can just focus on making the game, it is a lot more of a better situation for them than Friday the 13th had to deal with.
Yeah. This is a good, I think, topic you can spin into it. So I'm so excited. I'm concerned with the teamwork though. Friday the 13th, you can survive on your own, while Evil Dead is a struggle if you don't have a good team. That's true. So games like Evil Dead, games like this, when teamwork is a focus, I mean, obviously that puts it, under the light where you do need to be paying attention and playing as a team. Yeah, Friday, you could really do your own thing. You don't have to. I mean, I don't think I almost ever, I think maybe a few times, you really don't have to talk to anybody if you don't want to. And I mean, they have the walkie-talkie kind of the feature, they have to be close or the long range one. But yeah, this one, like we said, like you start, and I think there does need to be some sort of, okay, you do this, I do that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's going to make this one difficult, I think, more than Friday the 13th. Because you can, I mean, to my knowledge, I haven't played that one in a long time, but you can escape by yourself, right? Like, you can kind of just, like,
you
figure
can,
it out.
You can, like, hide out in a corner, and, you don't want to stand completely still. Actually, I think you'll get kicked if you stand completely still. But, go under some things, have other people, and then just wait for the phone or, wait for the timer to run out. You
call the cops, drive away, like...
Yeah. Now this one doesn't seem to be that easy though, because like like I was saying earlier, like if you're a killer, you can like double lock a door. You can like lock it, then put like another like a padlock on it or something. So with the survivors, you only have like 2 spaces for stuff, and you pretty much need like one of those things for defense in case you run into a killer. You can't have 2 lockpicks in your inventory. You have to work together a little bit if you're going to get a door open and get the hell out. So I imagine this one's going to be a little more tougher, especially if you don't have any like friends to play with. If you're online, like it's going to be a little harder to get that going when you just have a random. But hopefully they'll find a way where you can like just do it by yourself, because that was a big positive from Friday the 13th for me. Hopefully they can bring that in here if that does become an issue.
Yeah, and I think that teamwork will be imperative to me, especially when you're starting off in the basement and he's spawning down there with you. I mean, like, you have to immediately just get to going, like, okay, you over here, you loot that box, we get a lockpick, you're going to carry the lockpicks, I'm going to carry the weapons. It's got to be like that. You also got to work as a team and communicate as far as like knowing their weaknesses, because for example, believe Leatherface can't climb ladders. He's the only one in the family that can't climb ladders. So using that against them and just knowing when you're in danger and when you're not, and communicating that to others. Because I know, like me personally, I am the king of, if I don't have all the information, I might run towards a dangerous situation that I don't know is dangerous. And I'm like, why are you guys going up the ladder when like I'm just like, he can't climb. So that's going to be very imperative for a lot of people. And just being wise to knowing all the tools that you're presented with is going to be very important, along with teamwork.
Yeah. Predator Hunting Grounds game that died had potential. It did. And one thing they did do with Predator, well, they did add maps and characters and all that stuff, but cosmetics. And so I wanted to walk myself into the next comment. What kind of cosmetic system will there be in the game? That question is really stupid. How am I supposed to not ask? No, totally fine. I mean, that's a thing in the short term and the long term that can keep a game like this alive, right? If you're not pumping out maps, you can only do so many killers. Like, you kind of are limited. You could probably do survivors with different perks that are kind of attached to them, but cosmetics, and they've already hinted at some different looks for like Leatherface. That's going to have to be what they do. Now, depending on how much of the movies you guys have watched, but I'll hand it to Jake. Jake, you know your stuff. Is there anything specifically you would like to see visually? In
Oh man, like there's a lot of characters from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise that I would love to see here. You know,
Yeah.
Leatherface has had a bunch of different looks as well, which would be great. And I
Yeah.
already know there is already an alternate costume for him, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Is it his one from like TCM4 where he's got all the makeup on?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty cool already. That's an iconic
Yeah.
look for him from one of the probably the goofiest movie in the franchise. So I'm like, that's cool. Okay, that's awesome. But like Arlie Ermey's character from like the remake series would be really cool to throw in there. Like you have all the characters from the original movie, which is sweet. But then there's also like the second movie, which is kind of the same characters. But you also have like Bill Moseley's Chop Top. You could have him as a killer. That the entire like amusement park from the second movie too would be a great map, I think, in this one. If that hasn't already been announced, that would be fucking sweet.
Yeah.
But there's so much they can pull from this franchise. Like not every movie's just farmhouse in Texas, which is nice. It's a little it's got a little bit of a Friday the 13th vibe to it because there's a bunch of different locations throughout the entire franchise. So there's a lot that they can play into with some DLC. And I do agree that's really important to keeping a game alive. You can't just be doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's going to get old.
Yeah.
Much agreed. I'd like to see just the kills from the movies, to be honest. The unique ways to kill. I've seen them use their environment, doors, windows. I just want to see the creativity of it all. And of course, like the emotes they're going to be in there probably. And we all know the iconic one that we'd be looking for anyway. So I believe that's it might be even a victory thing. I think they could save it for if they're like if the family wins, like that's just something that he does. I have no idea, but that's definitely something I want to see for sure.
Yeah. Just want to say a quick hello. What's going on, buddy? I want to shift it to the killer. So we were talking about survivors. So I mean, what do we think? Is this like your dream? How will you play it? Are you gonna be? I guess we can go with that. Like, are you guys one to rush into it as the killers, try to maybe catch them off guard in the beginning? How do you imagine you play this game? And also, maybe which killer specifically would you want to play as?
Oh, that's really tough because like Leatherface seems like the most fun killer, but if you're any of the other ones, you probably play like a more important role, if that makes sense. Like it seems like if you're the Leatherface character, you're just the one who tries to kill them as fast as possible. Like, and that is going to be a blast. I can't wait to do that. That's going to be great. But some of the other characters, it seems like it's more like it's going to be really important for you to find them if they're hiding somewhere. Like Sway was saying earlier that like Leatherface can't climb ladders, so like if you can't get them up there in your Leatherface, you're kind of just hanging out. Yeah, so you're gonna have an important role, I think, if you're playing as the other characters. You can probably, I imagine you can. I don't know how, like, if speed is going to be a big thing in this, but Leatherface comes off a little slower to me. He's a bigger dude. He's got a big chainsaw in his hands. I imagine you're not going to be as fast. They focused on
speed with some of the traits. I was reading one of the traits of the characters. And they make it separate, where it's like strength is different than speed in this game, but they're not considered the same thing. So I think like they've put emphasis on that word, like speed or how fast they can go.
That's okay. That's cool. I really like that. That's a nice attention to detail too. But yeah, I imagine you're gonna have to, like, once again, just talking about the very few things I know about this game so far, seems like you're gonna have to, if you're the other killers, you want to lock the doors. Like that's gonna be the most important thing to do at the very start of it, and then go after them. But that, I think it's gonna balance out a little bit because they'll have some, survivors will have some time to get out and hide, do some scavenging and all that. But overall, I think it's just going to be a fun game, and if they find that balance of how to do the matchups with the killers and all that versus the survivors, it's not favored too far in one way or the other. It's going to be a fun game for everybody, but I can't wait to play as Leatherface more than anything. Shit.
I would have to agree there. I think me though, I'm a little bit more maniacal here. I would like to play to make the victims feel as much claustrophobic as possible. So I would go after the doors. I might also leave one open for trolling purposes there and chase them towards a ladder, but work with my team to have somebody already up there. So when they go up the ladder, it's somebody greeting them when they get up there. So I just would like to play with the map as much as possible and make the kills a little bit more as creative and fun with working with the team of killers. So that's just how I would approach it to make it fun, but definitely making sure as many of them don't escape as possible, and feeling as claustrophobic. I want to make them work for everything.
here's a question that kind of branches off into Scream or Halloween. What do you guys think? So we have like Killer Clowns, right? That kind of came out of completely left field. We've had games like Evil Dead even before, the movie obviously came out, huge success. But like now, the game came out last year. Do you think there's a future for pretty much like, because with Killer Clowns, for me, like the door is open. Any horror franchise possible. Because Killer Clowns is popular, but I mean, I think anybody else could probably do it as well. So do you think like there's a future from, and also would you want them to all be, this is a trick question, would you want them to all be like this, like Texas?
That's tough to say because with Halloween, you'd kind of have to do a Friday the 13th style
Yeah.
thing. It would have to be Michael Myers. We're not throwing Corey Cunningham in the Halloween game.
Yeah.
It's going to be Michael versus a bunch of people. You'd have to find a way to make that different. Is my big thing about that. With Scream too, that's tough too, because the big element to Scream is you have characters that are hidden in plain sight who are really the killers the whole time. What's that mechanic going to be like in a video game? Like, am I going to have to walk around if I'm the killer? Like, oh, everything's fine. Go in that room. Maybe that's where the killer is, and then have to get back into costume and then go kill somebody. I wonder how that game would play, or if it's just your ghost face and you have to run around kill people just like. One of the just like Texas Chainsaw or Friday the 13th. I would want that to be a mechanic if they made a Scream game, which that would be so tough. I don't know how they would do that, but it would be important to me as a weird diehard fan, Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing a Terrifier game.
Ooh, that would be fun.
I think it would. You would have the one killer there. I don't know how many victims you would necessarily want to do in the game, but I believe that there's a lot of brutal, grotesque. Like it would be probably the more Mortal Kombat version of these genre of games than any.
You'd be pushing the rating literally to the max. I think. If you
yes.
game. Yeah. The thing with Jake, honestly, I've never won. So when I've always thought of Scream, right? I've just gone as simple-minded as possible. Either it would just be kind of a rip-off of Friday in Texas, or you do like a single-player, choose-your-own story thing. So it'd be a single-player game. But your idea, there are games out there, and it's like Spy something. Maybe Sway, I don't know. There's a couple Spy-like games where you're in a room, or I saw one where like you're a sniper and you have to hit the one who is like out of place. And then the AI is like doing odd things, or maybe they're all in like a pattern and you have to kind of sniff it out. I actually think, if they did multiplayer, you'd have to do what you said, where it's like proximity chat, you're all being able to talk, and you have to convince people that it'd be like, what's it called? Werewolves Within, which was that,
yeah.
But it's also been movies and games and all that stuff, or Mafia. It would basically be that kind of social party game, but in more, 3D, like with Friday. And yeah, you'd have to convince them, you'd have to sneak out, change, just press a button to change, go out, kill, come back. Now that you bring it up, I actually legitimately think that would work. And that's how you have to only multiplayer. I'd still prefer single player, like David Arquette has said before, he would take that as well. I would take that, but your idea I've never once thought of, and I love it.
Because with this style of gaming, it's very popular right now. Like every franchise is jumping on this right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? So if they were to do something like that, you could approach it the same way as like The Quarry, where it's just, it's a single story and it's based on decision making, who ends up being the killer or whatever. That could be cool too, like 100%. But it would be kind of sick if it's like, oh, you have to kill somebody, and then the next part is kind of like it's almost like not Among Us, but that's unfortunately the first thing that's coming to mind. Where it's like you have like a meeting and it's like, who did it? And if they get the right person, they're gone. But then it's like, okay, now we got to do another kill scene. That'd be kind of a fun back and forth gameplay kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I love that. The creator of Terrifier said a video game has been discussed. Oh my god.
Hell yeah.
I didn't know that.
I love that. I love that. I have a friend that's gonna love it even more.
Friday the 13th, Dead by Daylight kicked off a new genre. Well, and so maybe we can get into this. Like, Dead by Daylight is kind of the undisputed king, right? Like, that's the game that's lasted the longest. It's the most popular. I guess I would ask this question, for any, and it's not really a live service game, right? A game that comes out in like pieces, but this is a game that you would expect to last long term. I guess a simple question: do you think this game can last long term? Like, I don't think any game's making it 7 years, like Dead by Daylight. But if this game can last 1 to 2 years, that's I think a success. That's probably what they're shooting for anyway.
This one's tougher. Sway, I thought you were gonna say something. My bad, man.
No, you good. You good.
I'll be quick. The big difference to me about this game versus Dead by Daylight is like Dead by Daylight, you can play as like so many different slashers and horror villains. They had like Stranger Things, The Ring, Hellraiser, like all these different DLC maps throughout the years. I feel like that's kind of part of it. You know, that's kind of part of why that has had its longevity, why it's lived so long, and why it's been so popular. And this one, it's going to be probably a little tougher to have something like that, like a 7-year run. It's not going to be like a GTA 5 or something where it's just like, oh my god, people are still playing it. You know, I don't think it's going to last that long, but maybe for a little longer than some of its competitors, for sure. Like I still have a lot of faith in this one. It's gonna be a fun game. I just don't think it'll have the longevity of something like Dead by Daylight that touches on so many different horror genres or games. If you're a fan of any of those IPs, you're probably a little curious, you know, just to play that DLC. So even if you hadn't played it in years, you're like, I'll check out the Hellraiser stuff. Okay,
who is not going back to Dead by Daylight for Nick Cage? Like who's not?
Exactly. They don't have Nick Cage in the TCM game. I'm just saying.
As far as the staying power of this game, it's all going to depend on, I think, the community and like how much we see other people talking about it. Like we don't see, it's not the most talked about game that I've noticed, but the people who are interested in it are very excited for it. So is that core crowd that they have big enough and like dedicated enough to keep that support going? That's kind of the big thing for me, because you know, like publications are gonna do it. So I mean, it's literally, we look to the communities to see how it's going. And you know, like right now, I want this game to be as much talked about just as much as any of them, because I believe that this is going to be something special. They're doing a lot of innovative things, even things that we're like, I don't know about that, but I have a feeling we're going to be all surprised when we get to play in it. And so I think that's what it's going to come down to. It's hard to say. Like Jake was saying, it's hard to say because it's so many moving variables, and it literally comes down to the fans of the genre and how much they like it, how mainstream they make it. And thing with Dead by Daylight is that they can pull from so many different IPs as to where you're just tied into this IP. So we're going to see how much people really either like playing the game or love the IP.
Yeah. This game, like I think it'll pick up. It's odd because like I was around for Predator, and Predator was so big, like huge leading into it. And I mean, the game did survive. I'd say the game was very healthy for at least like 3-4, if not longer months. Like it did pretty good, but that game was pretty big. I'd say Friday the 13th took off during this era of Texas. Like I think if the technical test is really good and these bigger like Let's Play channels get their hands on it, I think that's where it kind of soars leading into then August. Because for Friday, there was I think people got to play like a month earlier. It came out in early access from about a month. And that's where like the Ohm Wreckers of the world, like these channels had millions of subscribers. They took off with, and they made the game super Omega popular. So yeah, I hope that happens. It's not right now, but like maybe next week. But you're right. I mean, ultimately, if you have 10,000 players a day, you can survive on that. You can probably do it. So just hopefully they do it. Okay. We're gonna go off track here, but we need to talk Mortal Kombat. We're a man of the chat. Jake, Sway and I have talked about it. What do you think about MK?
You know, I'm mostly excited for it. I think the title's a little weird, personally, calling it Mortal Kombat 1. That's me being so nitpicky,
reboot, right?
You know. Yeah, it's the reboot, right? Yeah. So yeah, whatever. You know, who cares about that? But I think it looks cool. I'm always excited for new Mortal Kombat. It's kind of been the same thing here and there for the last couple of games, at least I've played. But I love these games so much. They were a huge part of my childhood. Like growing up, I would play a lot of Mortal Kombat with like my brothers. So like I always get just a little excited for any new Mortal Kombat, whatever it's gonna be. The DLC characters look cool too. Homelander's gonna be in there, which is like that's pretty sick. So I think it's gonna be
Amazon
cool.
Italy dropping the ball, accidentally leaking like 11 characters or something today. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that's nuts, man.
What do you think, Sway? Any updated thoughts on MK1?
I'm just very excited for it, man. I cannot wait. I am pumped.
Well, you know what? I can connect it a little bit because the beta is in August. So would the beta for MK go up against Texas Chainsaw? You may have it's violence, right? MK is not horror in any sense, I don't think, but two very violent games all in 1 month. Dead by Daylight spin-off developed by the people who made The Quarry. Yeah, I saw that. There's a rumor that there's a couple Dead by Daylight games being made. Yeah, that's more like story driven, or maybe want to think one is multiplayer, but it's not in the same vein. And that Supermassive is making one of them. That'd be why. Dead by Daylight can transcend. Well, they're making the movie. I don't know how in God's name you make a Dead by Daylight film, but I'm sure they'll try it. Yeah, it's that. I mean, this unlocks. Like, I think this will help Texas Chainsaw. Like, did you guys like the last? I hated, but maybe you guys didn't. The last movie, was it Netflix? What did you guys think of the last Texas?
I actually enjoyed it.
I believe it.
I mean, we got everything we were promised. It sure was a Chainsaw Massacre, kind of in Texas, but also kind of not. Hey, yeah. I'll take it. That killed the whole bus scene alone. I was like, okay, yeah, you got me there. It's not the best by any means, but I had a fun time with it.
Do you think this game helps the franchise moving forward, or does it need help at all in the first place?
That's really tough to say. I don't know what the future is with the movies. Like, we got an announcement last year after that movie had a little bit of success on Netflix. It was like like the third highest streaming movie on there for a little while. So we got the announcement that there was going to be another one, and now just no news since. I don't know what's going on with that. A lot of people, would agree with you, Alex. They weren't huge fans of it, so that might be part of it. Maybe this will spark some love for the franchise once again. Like I said, I'm always down for more of these movies. They're always a really fun time, even the weirder ones. I really enjoy just Leatherface chopping up people with the chainsaw. I'm a simple guy.
I think it will. If the game is good, it'll help the franchise, at least to get more visibility on it, get more people into it. I think right now, honestly, the game is coming out in the perfect year. I feel like this is the year of horror, and I feel like that genre has really elevated itself over the last 2 years, and right now it's in a very, very good place. Like, just seeing the amount of people that's getting interested in Scream, and seeing the amount of people that's looking forward to just wanting to hear, like, even Friday the 13th. Like, a lot of people constantly talk about getting another movie, another game. It's just a perfect time for it to release. So I think that as long as the game is good and they can get this game in front of many eyes as possible, I think Summer Games Fest would be a perfect place to do that. I 100% believe it'll help it.
Yeah, I think I'd imagine the franchise is strengthened at least a little. Maybe you see like the streams of X film, start to pick up, and then I think anytime these games come out that I think are even moderately successful, I think it helps the idea of whatever the next horror. Which, again, like, I'm gonna keep pitching Scream, because at this point, like, you're starting to knock down. Like, okay, you had Friday, like Halloween. Obviously, we're such diehard Scream people here, but Halloween is so big and it's been around longer. Like, how in God's name did they skip over? You know what I mean? Like, how do you go to Friday the 13th first? Where Michael, it really is almost the same thing. You could easily just clone or skin Michael Myers into the Friday the 13th game and be good. Do you think Halloween would be next? Like, if you had to predict what the next game like this is?
I could see it happening. But once again, my big struggle there is, how would you make that different from Friday the 13th?
Yeah.
Like, it would literally just be the same thing with Michael and Haddonfield, and you'd have some different maps, sure. Michael's gone to different places, yeah. I guess, kind of like sometimes, but yeah, it would just it would be the same thing. You would need another mechanic to it. You would need I love how this game is, like you were saying, like, it's 3 versus 4, right? Like 7 in total. So like that's different. Like that's okay. This is gonna be a severely different game, for the better, for the worse. You need that with Halloween. You couldn't just make it 1 versus 8 again, or something like that. Or you could, and be like, this is the new Friday the 13th game, you know? No one's really playing that one. We were talking about how buggy it was earlier. So I guess you could go down that route and just be like, fuck it, let's see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
But I would want it to have some kind of new mechanic to it. And that would just be a struggle to find, I think.
With that possible news of a Terrifier game, I'm gonna go with that's next. I'm gonna will it into existence here.
I got my fingers crossed for you, man. I hope it happens. That would be awesome.
Killer Clowns came out of absolutely nowhere. You know, like the trailer starts and it's like, you know, you could kind of see it. Like I had my very first boss at like my very first like main job. She would talk about Killer Clowns like all the time, and I'm glad she did because I don't think I would have honestly heard, maybe from Jake or something. I don't think I would have heard of like the franchise if it wasn't for her. And then when the trailer starts, it's like, oh my god, they're really doing it.
Have you
so
seen
what
that
that
movie?
means? I mean, anything. Yeah, I would not Terrifier. I mean, like if Jeff Keighley walked out there, Sway, and just said, "We're doing it," like that wouldn't shock me. You know,
I'm losing it. That second movie was so brutal. I'm like, I need this in a game.
A Chucky game. Do you think Chucky would work? See, I've always pitched Chucky as a Dead by Daylight character, and you have to use some sort of like how you carry somebody to the hook would be like the big hang up there. Do you think a Chucky game would actually work?
Oh yeah. It would be like you have the difference there. You know what I mean? You're not just a gigantic dude in a mask. You're a little tiny doll. You got to like hide in places and jump out at the right time or something. Immediately that's different. I would dig that. I'd be all about that.
Honestly, I think what you could do with Chucky too is like a lot of unique things. Specifically going from the first movie, but I would actually have like a bunch of Chucky dolls just around, because he's part of how Chucky gets his kills is manipulating people and making some people think that he's just a doll, and making some people, well, one person normally, aware that he is. So you could even do like a companion where like maybe there's a human on the side of Chucky, and like he's kind of working. I don't know how you would necessarily do it, but have him as a companion to help manipulate the others. But once again, it gets a gray area, because then like he doesn't always necessarily, it's normally the companion that kills him at the end. So I don't know how you would do it, but you know, walking in a room with like a bunch of Chucky dolls and you don't know which Chucky doll is the one, nor do you know if he's actually in that room. Like there's a lot of things you could play with if you did Chucky. I feel like you can make it very different.
Yeah. I don't know. I saw this about I don't know when pre-orders. So remember, if you don't know, the technical test on Thursday, all you have to do is wish list it on Steam. That's all you got to do. And then you're in the running. And then if they pick you, they pick you. I imagine pre-orders would go live kind of like right after, sometime in June or July. It's August 18th. That's a pretty quick turnaround. Ed Boon already said it's not a it's just a full-on reboot. The Dead by Daylight lore is very deep, so I wonder how they're going to handle that in the film. That's true. Like the Dead by Daylight lore has become lore. Like I don't really think it ever was for a long, long time, but they've put a lot of work in to just you can kind of dive deep into the lore of it. But like it's got to be all the original characters. Like you can't do, unless there's a Dead by Daylight film where it's just they get the licenses to all these IPs. But even like I don't even know how they do it for the games, because oftentimes they don't call it like the real, like Michael Myers is the shape, right? So like they try to skirt in Ghostface. I don't know what he's called. He's not called Ghostface, right?
Yeah.
Would you sign up for like a Dead by Daylight film though if they could actually get like say 10 different IP'd killers? That'd be freaking nuts.
You know, with how much people want to see like another Freddy versus Jason or something like that, that's basically what it would be. You know, it's just like the more extreme. It's the Fast X version of Freddy versus Jason, basically. You know, just like taking it to the 10th degree, making it the most insane thing possible. I'd be into that, honestly. It would be an event. I don't think it would be a good movie, but it would be a really fun movie.
Yeah. Now you got to get Nick Cage on it too.
Of course, he's got to fight all of them.
So, and Jake, you had mentioned maps earlier, so maybe this could be the next thing. So, right now, I think the technical test is literally one map. I could be wrong there. I'm pretty sure it's just the one. And we've talked a lot about the claustrophobia, and really even once you get out of the basement, like, yeah, we've seen clips of them outside, but you're always pretty close, right? Do you think like a really big map works, or do you think so? Like every map kind of has to be very in tight and closed. What do you guys think how that would work?
Um, I like this. It's gonna be tough. I think once again because we have a lot of characters like we were talking about earlier that are fast. You know, so like, would that work better in a bigger map? Would that be more fair? Or if you're in like tight quarters, like would it be more fair if you were like a faster survivor than the killers? You know what I mean? If it was a smaller map, I don't know. You know, I don't know what works better there. I think the bigger maps are gonna be more fun because it's gonna be harder to find people. But there, you know, the con to that is also like, what if you're just you play as a killer one round and you're just Leatherface running around a corner and nobody's there and everyone just gets out, you know, like that would suck. So, but we were talking earlier about the grandpa and the blood system, like with he's a UAV, like that's nuts. That's completely insane. So if you get one kill, you already have an advantage as like the killers because you have all that. You can like make the parts, the meat from the characters into blood or whatever, and then you feed it to grandpa. So I think it sounds pretty balanced as of right now. But once again, I think I have to play it to really be able to give a 100% answer. You know what I mean? It's like I can't. I don't really know for sure until I play it.
Yeah, I believe the maps. It would just come down to the survivability and like how easy it is for like the victims to escape versus, and that's also the same for like the killers. The maps being small and enclosed in, how with the unlevel playing field that they have, how hard does that make it? So it's kind of like the maps kind of will inevitably dictate the balance of the game in a large way. So it's like something you gotta play, but like a big map, I feel like could be a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah. A 4v4 licensed horror game where everybody plays as killers, kind of like heroes versus villains in Battlefront. That'd be so rad. The rights, that's the only thing there. That'd be a little difficult. Also, you know what? I should have checked that Dead by Daylight. So is that now confirmed, Carson? Supermassive is working on Dead by Daylight single player game. Because that was just a rumor, but you know what? I bet that came with the leaks of like the Nick Cage thing, and all that turned out to be true. So that'd be freaking sweet. I think Dead by Daylight, giving it to Supermassive, making a single player game, yeah, I think that would work. I think you can create some cool little lore things there in a Supermassive kind of formula. Which would you guys? I think we kind of skirted by this question. What would you play as? What would be your go-to killers or I don't know. I think they're called victims. I think that's the terminology, which is isn't that rough? Because doesn't that mean you're assuming something? Because if they're survivors or counselors in some sense. Which side do you think you go for at least first?
Killers, man. I want to chop up some people as Leatherface. Like that would be so fun. That's why we're playing, right? You know, we want to see blood, guts, and all that, and feel suspense. But I think it's gonna be fun to play both, though. You know, it's gonna be fun to be running away too, and then like Leatherface jumps out at you, and you're like, oh my god, you know, that's gonna be fun too. But I think I would want to start off as the killers and then ease my way into that. I don't know. I guess I'm weird. I like to be scared for as long as possible.
I'll probably go for the victims first. The killers would be like my gut instinct, but the victims just getting a feel for how the game works and just feeling that horror element right out the gate. I think that's what I would go for instantly. And I do, speaking of that, I do love the fact that loading in the games, say like, because we all know with these games, a lot of people want to be the killers. You can like load in as the killer if you want to, and they'll queue you in. And if somebody backs out, the game will not start. So basically, everybody goes for the one that they want, and you wait to get a game with completely everybody with all roles filled. So I do appreciate that greatly, considering the other games and how you know when somebody doesn't get what they want, so
that's actually a really good point when you think about. So either games would either fill them with bots, or you could sometimes go into like a Friday the 13th thing with Jason and then 5, counselors instead of 8, or whatever it is. But it's such a disadvantage that I didn't actually think about that. Like in this game, you need all 7. There's no world you can't go in 3v3 or 2 of the killers. Like and you can't really have bots if communication is that. So that I think pro con, right? Because if the game starts to die off, but that makes it very, very hard for matches and all that stuff. but at least you don't get the annoyances of bots or going in with half a team. I never really thought that much.
Because that would be an issue. It's probably going to be a little harder to get into games after like 3 months or so. Like I bet like this first month it's going to be like just a blast, as long as everything's running smooth. But yeah, maybe after a couple of months it'll be like, well, no one wants to play Victims anymore. You know what I mean, or something like that. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope it's like fun enough on both sides. That's the one thing that is going to be an issue if that comes up later on. So hopefully not.
Yeah. I'm just reading it is true. Supermassive Games, Until Dawn, Quarry, all that stuff is developing a new horror game set in the Dead by Daylight universe. The game will be an interactive adventure with branching paths filled with powerful life or death choices. That's kind of sweet. There you go. There's another Jake for your channel. That's an easy one right there. Steven, I keep telling him with all the Supermassive Games, he needs to get on that. I'm going to be so annoying quoting the movies as a killer. Will you like act it out, Jake, as like Leatherface when you're playing as Leatherface? So you're going to go like,
I'm going to now.
As him?
It's a great suggestion. So yes. With Leatherface, you just have to make noises. I mean, that's all he does. He just kind of screams. So that'll be my playthrough. I'm just screaming for like 3 hours on a live stream. People will love it.
Favorite fictional villain of all time. Let's condense it to horror to fit with the stream. So it has to be a horror. I think. Well, I would go generic of like Ghostface. No, like specific, but just the mask. What would be your guys's?
Man, Ghostface is a great choice. A lot of variety there. I'm gonna go Creature from the Black Lagoon just to throw something weird out there.
Oh my god, I don't think I could have predicted that one.
Traditionally, I would say Chucky, but I'm gonna go with Art the Clown. He's won me over. He's won me over.
I didn't know you were so into Terrifier. Like, when did this happen?
So I wasn't originally, and then I have a friend that is like really into horror. So like we'll go into like our horror mode, especially in October, and that's when we watched all of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres. 2 months ago we watched all the Screams, and Terrifier was something that I'd actually never seen until October. And seeing the first one, I was like, oh, this is, because I'm a gory person. I love gore. So watching that, and I was like, wow. And then I seen Terrifier 2, and I'm like, and there was this scene that, to the point where it was this scene, I don't want to spoil what it is, but apparently it was making everyone throw up in movie theaters. And I watched it, and I couldn't tell you to this day what the scene was. I don't know what that says about me. I'm assuming it was the bed scene, but I don't know what it was. But everything in that movie was just gruesome. I loved it. He has no rhyme or reason. He's just out here creating chaos.
Sway, you should watch All Hallows Eve if you've never seen that before.
I have not, but I will now.
Hell yeah, dude. It's kind of like the first big movie with Art the Clown in it. I think you'll dig it. It's really interesting.
I think he's kind of a Dead by Daylight character waiting to happen, to be honest. I don't know.
Yes.
I mean, they said if he wants a horror game, he may get a horror game all on his own, but I don't know. I think Dead by Daylight makes a lot of sense. I have watched Fast 10. Jake, I haven't seen your stuff, but I will tell you I adored it. So I don't know how you felt. No, actually, I want to hear how you felt. Did you say this is your first one, right? You haven't watched the others?
Okay, so I saw Fast X at 2:00 yesterday. I was in the very first showing. Nobody else was there. Me and my buddy, we saw it. I've never seen one of these movies before. And I have never wanted to give like a 10 out of 10 and a 0 out of 10 to a movie before. Like it was it was incredible. I loved every second of it, but it was so over the top and ridiculous. I don't think I've ever seen another movie that was like that ridiculous with its plot. Like, I don't know. I was it wasn't boring. It was never boring at any moment in that film. Like I was consistently invested in it, loved it. I really did enjoy it. So I went and watched the first 3 movies immediately after that yesterday.
There you go. That's quite a change from Fast 1 or Tokyo Drift to then this one. Well, that's great. Yeah. I think that's probably perfectly said. There's never been a movie, a 0 and a 10 out of 10. Like, this is the Vin Diesel saw Infinity War and said, I'm doing this. Like, that's what this
Yes.
is. And he did it. He absolutely did it. You got to give him credit. So I could talk about Fast 10 all day long. Random, but would be cool to see a team versus villain game with Scooby Doo and Traps. Oh my god!
Oh, how could we not? How does that not happen, Jet?
Fast 10 is interesting. I think for most polls I saw, people won't see Fast 10, just saying from experience. Yeah, the early projections for Fast 10 were like it was going to do really, really bad, and now the projections are it's doing like incredible. So I don't know. Movie box office projections are like the stupidest things. They can never get it right. All right. So to wrap it up, we've made it almost the hour. I guess any final thoughts? What are you hoping to get out of I was literally going to say Fast 10. What are you hoping to get out of Texas Chainsaw? Biggest excitement, biggest concern, any of those final thought kind of things.
My big thing with this game is I hope it has some longevity to it. I hope we're playing it for a little while. It seems like it's a lot of fun and a different take on the same style of games that we've gotten just in the past like 4 or 5 years or so. So I'm really excited to see what else this can bring to the table. Hopefully something fresh, something new. And we can be, like I said, we can be playing this for a while, talking about it for a bit. And hopefully we get some cool DLC too. I would love to play on some of those other weirder maps from some of the later sequels. That would be a lot of fun to me.
Honestly, I wanted to do a little bit more than what I think it's probably responsibly asking for it to do, and that's just to further put the horror genre on the map, like movies and games. I want this to be one of those iconic pillars that kind of like just raises up and make everybody wants to make more of this. So I want the best for it. I love the community around it and just around like horror in general. Like everyone is so interested and so lively with it. So I just want to see more from it.
Yeah, it's passionate. Like you think of like Predator, I saw kind of like crumbling like before my eyes when watching it. But Friday the 13th, I mean, there were so many passionate,
So many.
and people like as the game died, like people died off with it. Like I think there was such a want for that game to survive, especially early on, right? Like when it was kind of revealed, like no, this is kind of all you're getting. Like I remember a couple months in, it's just you could kind of feel it. It was reflected in the community where people are like, we want this game to last longer, and then just when you don't, you have to give stuff, right? For a game that if you want to last more than like a month or two, you have to keep providing. And when courts literally tell you can't, you're screwed. Like you're literally screwed. And like the community kind of saw that in real time. So there's no way that happens here, which is good. And there's just, will the game actually be? I mean, everybody that's played, like IGN did a preview of it, GameSpot and stuff. Everybody's liked it. Like, everybody's really liked it from like half an hour or however much they're allowed to play it. All right, guys. So we thank you for watching live. We thank you for watching afterwards. I'm going to try to get into the technical test. I'm sure everybody will. And we'll see how it goes. And then we'll do some things with the test. And obviously the full game launches in August. So hopefully much more Texas Chainsaw coming your way. Make sure you guys follow. I want to say subscribe, but then Sway isn't on YouTube. So follow, on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube to these two great gentlemen. Guys, thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
And we thank you, as always, for watching. We'll see you all on the next one.